Severance starts now. Mark is hot. Helly's hot. Dylan's hot. Irv is hot. Dylan's hot. Milkshake's hot. Right?
Yeah, but you forgot Gemma.
Gemma's hot.
They're all really hot.
Look that up, everyone. If you haven't heard that yet, look it up. So we watched Severance Season 2. And we talked about Severance Season 1 already, right? Do we really need to tell people what it's about?
No, we already talked about it.
So
we just covered it a couple episodes ago. So if you want to hear that, just go to our channel.
Yeah. I also did a special video about Severance that came out on Friday. This will mean nothing to you
because it'll come out several weeks later.
But go ahead and check that out because I put some thought into it and some elbow grease, all that good stuff. So what did we think about? So this is going to be more focused on Severance Season 2, obviously. That video I mentioned is sort of just about what Severance is in general and the themes, I guess, that I felt like Severance was touching on. That's what that video is about. This is going to be focused on Season 2. And did we like Season 2? Yeah, apparently Micah didn't like it.
I'm just kidding. It was really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this will contain spoilers for Season 1. We're not going to worry about that.
We will refrain from Season 2 spoilers until the spoiler section, but, don't watch this if you have not seen Season 1. So, at the end of Season 1, we leave off with the overtime contingency being activated, which is basically a way for the outies, or a way for the innies to
connect.
To turn themselves into innies in the outside world.
Oh, right.
So if this signal is sent out, then the outie becomes an innie no matter where they are. They don't have to be on the severed floor. And the innies had hatched a plan to activate this protocol while they were all outside and try and warn people that they need to be helped, basically. And that's where we left off. And Mark realizes at the very end that his wife is Miss Casey, the therapist, and she's actually alive because he knows her from the office. Outie Mark doesn't know this. Outie Mark thinks that his wife is dead. Innie Mark knows that she's not, and he sees a picture of his outie with Miss Casey, with Gemma. That's her outie name. This is going to get really confusing. I feel like I'm confusing myself already just by using the word outie and Emma and Gemma and Miss Casey and Mark and Mark.
Well, Mark Scout is the outie and Mark S is the innie.
Yeah. Anyway, this is where we leave off. Innie Mark knows that Gemma is alive, and this news is, in theory, going to be passed on to outie Mark, and that's where we left off in Season 1 with Mark, specifically. With Helly, where did Helly leave off, Micah? What was the reveal?
She's an Egan.
Yeah.
Forgot about, that was crazy.
Yeah. And the Egans are the head. I don't know why we're explaining this. We said that we weren't going to be explaining, but...
Well, that's where we left off.
Yeah. Egans are the owners of Lumen, the owners of the company, and she is the daughter of the current CEO.
Yeah, and so she doesn't tell anybody that. And that's how the season starts, with the innies talking about what happened when they were in the outside world as innies.
Yeah. And she lies about it.
And Irv can't let it go.
Yeah.
He thinks it's suspicious what she says. And honestly, fair. Because she's like, oh, nothing happened. I was just at home and the gardener was there.
Right. Yeah. And Irv is like, something isn't adding up about that. It's going to be really difficult to talk about this season without spoiling things, because things are slowly drip fed to you as you go along in this show. So every episode is going to have a reveal of some sort or a new thing of some sort. And we don't want to spoil anything. So I guess what we can say is, if you liked Season 1, you probably will like Season 2.
It's weird, certain parts of this season.
In a good way, though.
The goats.
In good ways.
Yeah. I'm just saying that just a heads up.
Did they found the goats in season 1, I thought.
They found the goat room.
One goat room, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not the goat field.
Okay. So there's a goat field, I guess. You know that. No.
I don't think that's a spoiler.
You know, but Severance is always it's always got that little bit of surrealism going on with it. You know, think of the music dance experience from season 1. That was kind of out of left field, right? There's going to be stuff like that going on in season 2 for sure. Mr. Milchick gets much more of a starring role in season 2, and I think personally that that is for the better. I liked Patricia Arquette, Miss Cobell. I like her as a character. I think she's interesting and, well, interesting in quotes. I think she's sinister.
Yeah.
And she's good at that. Milchek, I think is way more interesting as a character. I like his character a lot more than I like Miss Cobell.
Well, I think it's interesting that they're giving him more of a story and a background, or having him be more in depth as he's the boss. And it took Miss Cobell leaving for her to have.
Well, yeah.
So I wonder if that's why you feel that way.
Well, they give Milchek his own. They give Milchek his own. What's the right word? Conflicts.
Yeah.
To deal with. I guess to an extent, Cobell had those as well, but she sort of her conflicts were Lumen's conflicts. They were problems that Lumen was facing that she needed to help solve. Milchick's problems are all his own.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best way I know how to put that. And it's interesting. And you think maybe Milchick is gonna turn at some point on Lumen. Maybe he's not. So there's a little bit of tension going on there. I really liked that, and plus the actor for Milchick just does a great job.
Yeah, he does.
He's a seat stealer, really. Whenever he's in a scene,
A show stealer?
right? A scene stealer.
I think he said seat.
No, scene steal. Yeah, he probably steals seats as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, a big old cake he's got back there.
Yeah, he probably just squishes that cake right on down into someone else's seat, doesn't he?
Yeah.
What else? Oh, again, there's great editing in this season. I think when we talked about season 1, we were in the middle of watching season 2, so I was in my mind's eye or whatever. What's that from, everybody? Do you know what that's from?
Yeah.
What is it from? I guess we're spoiling it.
Wait.
Don't tell me in the comments because Mike is going to tell me right now.
I know who says it. It's.
I thought about it really hard in my mind's eye or whatever.
Is it Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's what I thought. I can only.
It's when he tricks the vegan because he put half and half in one cup.
Yeah.
Actually, it was half and half in this cup, but I thought really hard about putting it in this cup in my mind's eye or whatever. That's a great movie. You should watch that if you haven't seen it. Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Kieran Culkin's in that.
He is, yeah.
Roommate?
Yeah. He is. So, anyways, I was combining them in my mind's eye or whatever when I was talking about season 1. I think that I noticed the editing specifically in season 2 more than I did in season 1. It opens with Mark running into the office, and the whole, I don't know, maybe like first minute or 2 minutes of the episode is just a big old tracking shot of him running through the corridors. And it's really cool. It's handled really, really well. And then there's other moments of just awesome editing in this show that I really, really love. I think to talk about them in any more detail would be spoiling things.
But I also just love the color grading.
You do?
Of this show, specifically, what is it, episode 8?
Oh, okay. So you like that one?
Yeah.
That one's a little bit controversial. Yeah. People don't like that episode too much.
We'll talk about it in spoilers.
Yeah.
I can understand why people didn't like it. It's definitely a different episode than the rest of the season, I would say, and it's shorter, which makes it stand out, but I really liked it. I thought it added a lot of substance.
Okay. That's interesting to know. I have heard really only like one complaint about this season, and the complaint was it feels like they didn't have enough to fill 10 episodes, and they were building towards what happens in the last episode, but they didn't really have 10 episodes worth to fill in order to get to that point. And I think I'd have to watch this season again to really say whether or not I agree with that opinion. All I can say now, though, is I was entertained the whole time.
Same. And this show isn't bam, 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 action packed.
Yeah.
It has a lot going on in all of these. I will say, I still think a lot was discovered this season.
Oh, for sure. There are a lot of reveals. I think the problem that this person had with it was too many of them came at
Right
the
at
end.
the end.
Yeah.
How else were they supposed to do some of these, though?
Yeah, I don't know.
And the other thing is that I'm worried about is this obviously there's going to be a season 3. It's already, been
Greenlit.
Yeah. But how many seasons do you think that they're going to do of this? Are they going to drag this out as long as possible? Because I really hope not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's a really well-made show, but I don't want 10 seasons.
No. I don't think anyone does.
I would say I'd be happy with 3 at this point.
Assuming that they can
wrap everything up.
Answer the biggest questions people have in a satisfying way.
I think 5 would be pushing it, in my opinion.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they've got more in the pipeline.
Yeah.
But
I just don't want there to be more seasons just for the sake of being more seasons,
Yeah. But we do have to consider who owns this IP.
Apple.
Right. And since when have Apple not been willing to milk something for all it's worth?
Yeah.
I mean, they made you buy separate chargers how many times in the last 10 years? How many times? Twice at least. They used to have that big fat one, right?
Okay. Now you're just being annoying.
No.
Yes.
I'm just saying, Apple is not above playing this game.
Okay, well, let's just rate it and then we'll get into the spoilers.
All right. I still think this is one of the best shows on TV currently. There's always the risk, right, when you have a really exceptional show that hasn't wrapped up yet, that it'll disappoint you at some stage, like The Bear did a little bit with season 3. And I hope that that's not what's going to happen with Severance, but as of right now, it's still really, really good. I would give this season a 9.2. Choreography and music departments out of 10.
Is that what it was called?
Something.
Okay, I really enjoyed this season. I don't think I really have anything to complain about right now. So I think I'm just going to rate it a 10.
Woo!
A 10, how short are Helly's bangs going to get out of 10?
I didn't notice that.
Oh, they're just always so short.
Spoiler section or Parents Guide. I feel like that's the trigger for us to remember that we have to do Parents Guide as we move on to spoiler section.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh shit. Parents Guide. So there's a decent amount of swearing in this show. And there's some violence. Yeah, there's some violence.
Yeah.
In this season. There are some sexy time situations, but they're not rated R.
No.
Not at all.
They're definitely rated PG-13.
If that.
Yeah. And like on the way tamer side of PG-13, I would say.
Right. They're tastefully done, I'll say. So really, this is TVMA for the language, and then for some scenes of violence. There's not very many. Really, language. I think if you are okay with watching a show with language, you'll be okay with the violence, because this will have hooked you, and then you can look away if you need to. Right? Like Micah did.
I did.
So, spoiler section. I guess let's talk about the violence, because that'll be a nice segue. So the one violent scene that I can remember is Drummond dies.
Yeah.
He's one of the watchers, but the big guy, the big security dude.
Mm-hmm.
He ends up getting into a tussle with Mark, and he's choking Mark, and then Brienne of Tarth shows up.
Brienne of Tarth. I was reading comments on a TikTok video.
Who is the Lord of the Goats? I'm not going to explain jack shit now. You're in the deep water now, my friend. So Brienne of Tarth shows up and fights Drummond in the hallway after he almost chokes the life out of Mark, and then she beats him to a pulp. So it's sort of like a throwback to the Hound versus Brienne of Tarth.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're about to say?
Well, basically, but I was reading a comment on a TikTok video about that scene, and it was like, I love watching Brienne of Tarth just beat the shit out of big dudes.
Because in real life, she's like 6'5" or something crazy.
Is she? I I thought she was only like 6'2".
She's big. She's a big lady.
What's her name?
Gwendolyn Christie.
Oh yeah, well 6'3".
Oh, okay.
That's basically what I
I
said.
thought she was bigger. How big is Mr. Drummond?
6'2".
His name is Olafur Dari Olafsson.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's very Scandinavian.
Yeah, look at that picture though. He
Yeah.
looks like a happy dude.
He's Icelandic.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so Brienne of Tarth is 1 inch taller than Olafsson, Count Olaf.
Mr. Drummond.
So yeah, so Brienne of Tarth beats the shit out of Count Olaf in a white hallway, and then Mark takes Count Olaf hostage so that he can get into another room because this is where his wife is. And the problem is he's got this bolt gun. They were going to sacrifice a goat. Keep up, everyone. They were going to sacrifice a goat. And Mr. Drummond had this bolt gun to sacrifice the goat. And then he heard a commotion in the hallway, started fighting Mark. Anyway, Mark takes him hostage with the bolt gun. They go down the elevator. As the elevator opens, Mark switches to his Audi because they're entering a new floor.
I actually really liked this part.
Oh yeah, it's really clever.
Yeah, because he's innie Mark and he's holding this gun to Drummond's neck.
Yeah.
And he's saying, "Now when we go down there, I'm gonna switch my and don't you even."
Because remember, I still have this, and then the
switches,
and then the Audi Mark accidentally sets the bolt gun off, and shoots Mr. Drummond in the neck with it, and he's bleeding out.
And imagine
he bleeds out and dies.
Waking up and you accidentally just killed somebody and he's bleeding out on you.
And you're covered in his blood.
Covered.
Yeah. So that's the violent part. It's very subversive and clever the way they did it. I don't know if subversive is the right word, but it's clever. It's clever the way they did it.
Even though I didn't watch, it was kind of funny.
Yeah. Was there any other violence in this season?
Not like that.
Were you glad that they ended up not killing the goat? I was glad.
Yeah.
That would have been sad. Yeah, I liked that goat.
It was very ritualistic.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything more.
Yeah.
Again, I think that they are very much hammering home. Severance is, in many ways, a metaphor for religion and cults. And that's no different with this scene. I'll just leave it there. What else? What else do we got? So...
Oh, can we talk about the episode where they go out into the wilderness?
Yeah, that was really good.
That was a crazy episode.
I liked that one a lot.
And, it was definitely weird because why did Mr. Milchick think that was a good idea?
See, this is another problem that the guy that the video that I watched had with this season, is he felt like that episode was way too big of a risk.
Yeah.
But
also Mr. Milchick is trying to be innovative and nice and all that, so I can understand that, but
he's trying a little too hard.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing he said was Mark is really the one they're focusing on. Mark is the golden boy. And at the beginning of the season, they wanted all the other innies out because they were troublemakers in theory, right? So
distracting him.
Yeah, so Dylan and Helly and Irving were not called back, and they filled their places with 3 stand-in macro data refiners.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark threw a tantrum, didn't want to work unless he got his people back. So they brought them back. And this YouTuber was complaining because, well, we know that Lumen didn't feel comfortable having that group together from the beginning, which is why they replaced 3 out of 4 of them. And then they sort of had to bring everyone back, otherwise they would lose their golden boy. So knowing that, why did Mr. Milchick think it was a good idea to set them out, free into the wilderness where so many variables could derail everything?
Mm-hmm.
I guess the one thing I'll say is he definitely did have some measure of control because they were in the middle of nowhere. And there was only one place they could go.
Yeah.
Which was where Lumen was directing them to go. So, maybe that could be argued, but...
Episode 8.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we kind of get a backstory to Miss Cobell. She goes back to her hometown, which, do we know what it's called?
Salt Bend or something?
Salt Neck?
Yeah, something like that.
And we find out that she was like a child laborer working in a factory, and the town has now basically been abandoned.
Yeah.
And everybody is addicted to this drug.
Yeah.
Do we know what it is?
They have given it a name, but I don't remember.
Okay. They basically huff a liquid, right?
Yeah, it's like a chloroform thing.
Yeah, type
Yeah.
thing. And we find out that
Hey, does this smell like chloroform? I just chloroformed Micah. Guess the episode's over.
we find out that she won some award, and we find out she created the severance procedure.
Yeah.
And it was stolen from her.
Yeah.
And that's why she reacts the way that she does when she gets fired, because it was her project.
Yeah.
It was her idea. It was her experiment or whatever.
Her work.
Yeah. And so people think that Helly doesn't know that because
Helena, the outie.
Oh yeah, Helena. Yeah. Because when Miss Cobell shows up at the building and it's late at night,
yeah,
Helena is like, "You're getting basically like, you need to learn your place. Like you're giving yourself too much importance."
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that definitely enriches that scene.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to watch the season again, I mean, yeah, like Cobell is the reason
Mm-hmm.
for the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing I did find a little bit maybe contrived, I don't know, is Cobell is very dedicated to Lumen in the first season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as she gets fired, she's willing to completely flip on Lumen.
Well, are you surprised?
Yeah, but like before she was totally okay with, disappearing people and whatever experiments they're running on Gemma, totally fine with it.
Right, because they basically raised her.
Yeah, but now all of a sudden she's anti all that and willing to, pretending like she cares to save Gemma's life, even though it was her plan in theory, at least to some degree. Whatever is going to happen to Gemma, she was heavily involved in that. She would have been a party to it.
I think it's one of those things that you put up with so much until you can't put up with it anymore.
But she never really gave a hint in the first season that she was putting up with stuff. It seemed like she was on board.
Except when she wasn't allowed to talk to the board.
But I'm saying she never seemed to have any qualms with what they were doing to those people.
No.
So now it seems
people are still confused on why she's helping.
Okay. Yeah, because does she care? Or is this just a fuck you to Lumen?
Right, and I think that's something we'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm dumb, but I did not suspect that Helly was her outie.
I didn't either.
Yeah, not once.
Not once.
The guy that I watched his YouTube video, he said that they made it way too obvious that that's what was going on. I didn't really feel like they did.
I didn't either.
To the point where I felt like Irving became very suspicious of her sort of out of nowhere, because she doesn't tell the truth when they're all in the sharing circle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's episode 1. Unless I'm wrong, that doesn't ever really get brought up again until episode 4, which is when they have
Irv brings it up.
Does he?
Doesn't he?
I don't think so. I think it's all in that episode. And I figured he was just being paranoid because they were walking through the woods and it was weird.
Huh.
And maybe Bert had just been retired. I don't remember when that happens exactly.
I don't remember. But
it's like Mark and Helly are up ahead walking, and he's talking to Dylan. He's like, "What do you think they're talking about? I don't trust her." I was like, "What? Where is this coming from?" And then by the end of the episode, he's right. That's when they reveal that Helen is Helena. I don't know. I felt like that kind of came out of nowhere. And again, maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I just wasn't noticing the signs. Maybe it wasn't me reading the signs.
I will say I kind of like the story that they took Bert on, because when Irv's Innie is in the outside world, he goes and finds Bert, and it takes us a while to find out what happened, and he was just banging on the door for Bert, and then Bert comes and tracks him down.
Yeah.
As they're both outies, and invites him over for dinner, and we find out that Bert and his partner decided that Bert was going to become severed so that maybe his Innie could make up for bad things that he'd done in his past.
Right, they're religious.
To atone, I guess.
Yeah, like the pastor that they go to told Bert's husband that in his approximation, an Innie has a soul that's separate and pure, from the outie. And like Micah said, this was a way for him to atone for his mistakes. My guess is that pastor is a Lumen pastor, now that I'm thinking about this, because he's encouraging more people to sever. But, This is definitely a show where it's one step forward, two steps back, in a sense that you get one question answered, and it's like a hydra.
Yeah.
There's more questions that pop up.
Well, it definitely made me think of like the nature versus nurture for Bert, because was he a bad person because of the way that he grew up, or is he just inherently a bad person?
What do you mean?
Because they send him in there to be severed to be a good person, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But he breaks Lumen rules and he has a relationship.
Because that was one of the things that they talked about. You know, he was a little bit promiscuous and a little bit of a man's man. Yeah, a ladies' man, but a man's man because he's gay. So this was one of the things that they wanted him to atone for, was his frivolity. I don't know, wrong word, but
promiscuity.
Yeah,
what's the word?
Promiscuity, and he is,
and he ends up falling in love
right with Irving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we find out how he is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there is definitely some carryover between innies and outies, right?
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting is it seems like they're able to select certain types of memory when they create an innie, because one of the very first things that Helly is asked in the first episode when her innie wakes up is, "Where are you? Where do you live?
Yeah.
Can you name the state that you live in? Can you name any state?"
Yeah.
And she only is able to come up with Delaware, right? Which comes, I liked the little, the little callback to that in the last episode, by the way, but that's besides the point. What's interesting is they're able to completely erase things like geography, for example, but the innies still remember how to speak English.
Right, and they still remember like metaphors and
yeah, like pretty much all of their communication skills are still intact.
Yeah.
It's, how does that work?
I think it's one of those things that you can't think about too much.
Yeah, I think so.
But
yeah,
I also thought about that.
I feel like if anyone's tuning in, they want us to talk about the last episode.
With Gemma?
Yeah, what happens? So they are able to, Mark is able to talk with his innie because they go to the birthing cabin from season 1.
It's too much to explain.
Anyway, they're able to communicate with each other and hatch a plan about how they're going to get Gemma out. They get Gemma, the combination of his outie and his innie. They get Gemma. They get her up to the severed floor. The innie Mark escorts her through the halls to the exit door, gets her out, and he's about to follow, but he knows that if he leaves, there's a good chance that he won't come back and he'll lose Helly. Helly and Mark are in love.
They are smitten with each other.
Right. Mark S. and Helly are, the any versions of themselves are in love. And so Gemma is on the other side of the door saying, "Mark, come on. What are you doing? Why aren't you coming out here?" And Mark turns around and goes with Helly. And they go skipping down the halls. And that's where this season ends.
Heartbreaking for Gemma.
For Gemma, yeah. But like they do such a good job of making you want two things in this show.
I only wanted him to go outside.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't want him to be with Helly?
Their relationship is weird.
Mark S. and Helly?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Their relationship is fine. I just really wanted him to go outside. Gemma's been trapped for 2 years.
Right. But you don't like Helly more than you like Gemma?
I definitely like Gemma more than I like Helly, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Even the any version of Helly?
Right.
Oh, okay.
What about you?
No, I think I like Helly more.
Why?
She's just interesting.
That also brings up the nature versus nurture. Helly and Helena. Because Helly is a decent person.
Yeah. Except for Egan sees some of Keir in her.
People think that he said that because she might be pregnant.
With Mark's a child?
Yeah.
Why would...
It's a whole thing. I would just look up the...
I can't believe you just did that. He thinks... By the way, this is a theory. I ask one question. It's too much to explain.
It's a lot to explain.
Unbelievable. What a tease.
That's my job.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, I thought that was a really good ending, and I think that ending makes a lot of sense.
Oh, for sure.
Because
Mark S. is not in love with Gemma. Mark Scout is.
Yes.
And he's his innie. So Mark S., of course, is going to pick Helly. And he did his job. And
Mark S. has plenty of reason to distrust
Mark Scout.
The promises of Mark Scout.
Yeah.
Because to whatever degree Mark Scout is better than Helena in terms of seeing innies as people, he doesn't really see them as people. Yeah. It's his body. It's his life. The innies are sort of it's whatever.
Yeah.
We'll combine, right? And we'll be our two selves, and that's that. And Mark S rightfully is like, you've been alive for 4 times longer than me, or what is it, 10 times longer? Because he's been there for 2 years. 20 times longer. Yeah, Mark is about 40 in his 40s, so 20 times longer. So when we combine, isn't it going to be 20 times more you than it is me? And Mark Scout's like, I don't think it works like that. And Mark S is like, well, how does it work? It really seemed like Mark Scout was not so concerned with what happened to that part of himself, what was going to happen to that part of himself after reintegration happened. And Mark S was very keen on staying himself as much as possible. So he had reason to distrust his Audi,
Mm-hmm.
and he got the job done. And
right, he fulfilled his part of the bargain.
Right, after that was done, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna run through the hallways now."
Yeah.
The music and dance, the freaking band.
Oh, it was great.
So good. Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah.
I loved how they all held the cards up.
To the ceiling.
Yeah, and it was Mark's face, and he was smiling, and it said 100%, and they were like, yeah!
Mark's not going to see that.
I know. It's so good. It was probably so dark under there.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Well, and then Helly traps Milchick in the bathroom, and then Dylan puts the vending machine there while the band is still dancing.
Milchick is the most long-suffering, evil manager I've ever seen in my life, right?
He did not give up.
Ever. And
No.
he's been, just
treated like absolute
he's
shit.
been treated horribly
Yeah.
by you almost feel bad for him. If he didn't work for Lumen, you'd feel bad for him.
Yeah.
But he does work for Lumen, and to some degree he knows what's going on, and he's okay with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like they're introducing a little bit of a race.
Yeah.
He has misgivings about how he's treated,
As a person of color.
right, as a black man, because they give him this weird little
gift
award, and is it all the founders?
Yeah, but it's definitely Kier. But then they make everyone
Black
so that he can relate to them better or something.
It's so strange. Yeah, it's so strange. And he's, rightfully perturbed by it.
Yeah.
And he puts it away.
Like away where he can't find it. And you kind of think they definitely planted seeds of, is Mr. Milchick gonna
turn?
Yeah, become one of the good guys? And I definitely hope that in the next season we see something come of that.
It would be really cool if he did.
Yeah.
You want to like him.
You really do.
You really do.
That part where he gives Dylan that form, and he's like, I'm really busy, and sprints out of the room.
That was a great scene. Dylan's Audi writing the letter to his innie.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
Because
you really feel for Gretchen.
Oh, yeah.
His wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And that's a B plot, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. I liked though
and the milkshake thing is a B plot, and it's interesting.
Yeah. But Dylan proposing to Gretchen, Dylan's innie, and she leaves. Gretchen! Like him on his knees yelling at her.
Yeah. Another thing that the guy said, I keep referencing this guy, this mysterious guy.
Yeah, who's this guy you keep talking about?
Just picture the guy from Spy Kids 3. Spy Kids 3.
There's like a million people.
No. He's the guy. Look up the guy. Spy Kids 3. You'll find him. He's the guy.
You're talking about him?
Elijah Wood, yeah. That's literally his character's name.
Oh my gosh.
So just picture that. That's the guy. But the guy that did the YouTube video that I watched said that Helly was acting so obviously different from herself, from her season 1 self. And I don't know, maybe if she is a little bit more passive than Helly R was from season 1. Helly R, she's a spitfire.
Yeah.
And Helena is more submissive. Not maybe submissive is the wrong word. She's more calculating.
Yeah.
She doesn't like to play her cards, right? She knows when to hold them, knows when to fold them, knows when to walk away, and knows when to run. Name that song, everyone, in the comments.
Except apparently not, because Irv almost kills her.
Yeah, he just pushes her a little bit too far. He questions her a little bit too much, and she gets pissed off and tips her hand. And Irving knows for a fact at that point that she's not Helena. But one thing that this guy was saying was these coworkers spend every waking moment together. Literally, that's their life. And they would be able to perceive of changes. They should, at least. Like
I don't know
Mark,
if Mark would have, though.
that was his point. He was saying Mark S should have noticed something was different about Helly.
I don't know.
I don't know if I agree with that either, because like they
He was
are
just infatuated with her.
There's that, and they have so little emotional experience, so there's not. But also, if you want to say that they're starting their emotional maturity journey from zero, then shouldn't they behave like toddlers? You could argue that that's another thing that you can't really think too much about. But also, I would push back with this: they're there to work, right? It's not like they're spending 8 hours a day
just yapping,
right? Drinking yappuccinos,
even though they kind of are
eating yapparoons. I don't know. I think that that's something I can suspend disbelief on personally. What about you?
Yeah, same.
Is there anything else? Oh, we sort of ended up talking about Severance for the whole episode, didn't we?
Yeah, that's okay.
Upshot is, watch this show.
Yeah.
If you aren't already. And let us know what you think. Up next.
We are watching Succession Season 1, but I don't think we'll be ready.
Yeah, liking it though.
Yeah.
And I finished Ratchet and Clank. You thought I was going to say Ratchet Skink, didn't you? So I can talk about that next week. I've also been playing No Rest for the Wicked. It's in its early access stage. Maybe I'll give you a little report, little update on it. You playing anything, Micah?
No, but I've been reading the new Suzanne Collins book, Sunrise on the Reaping.
It's called I Will Never Give Up on Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Subtitle, Another Hunger Games book.
Yeah.
Subtitle, my website is maybe the worst website of all time.
No, I think you looked it up.
And it was better?
And it was better.
Okay.
But yeah, it was.
It used to be
absolutely the worst.
A train wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baby's first HTML. That's what it was.
This Suzanne Collins definitely is better than J.K. Rowling.
Really?
In the sense that even though she can't let it go, at least she's not just on Twitter changing things.
Oh, okay. Fine.
She's writing other books to give.
Every author does it. Like it's unfair for me to say that because like what the have I done? They've come up with something incredibly creative and they're
making money on it, and so there's more money to be made and all of that. And I'm not upset that she made this. It's been good so far. There's a lot of characters that are young in this. So it's Haymitch's story of his Hunger Games. And there's so many names and characters from the original trilogy that you get to meet and have a lot more interaction with, which is fun.
Yeah. Question. This is me continuing my little bitch about every author just milking their IPs for years. So, right, Orson Scott Card did it with Ender's Game. J.K. Rowling has done it with the Cursed Child and the Fantastic Beasts movies. Suzanne Collins is now doing it with the prequels to the Hunger Games. Is it the same for like a comic book creator, comic book characters like Stan Lee? Is that the same thing?
Oh, Stan Lee?
Yeah, because he created Spider-Man, right? And then he did his whatever 50, I'm making numbers up, his 50 issue run of Spider-Man, but then he does Spider-Man and Thor, for example.
Are they
is that the same thing as as Orson Scott Card coming up with Ender's Shadow?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Okay. Useless question. I just thought I'd ask it. All right. Well, kisses and hugs, everyone.
Say bye.
Bye.